Dungeon was like 2 weeks ago, and now we have this library of all these dungeons, ruined temples, cursed mines, abandoned towers. What can we do with all this disconnected content?
I feel like the answer is to spend 12 hours making fake trade routes for illicit magic items moving through a fictional black market. Duh.
What if, instead of running down that rabbit hole, we made a sandbox campaign? These types of campaigns have a reputation in TTRPG communities. Depending on who you ask, they're either the purest form of role-playing games or they're a complete narrative catastrophe.
Let's see. They start off in a small town. They got lost in the woods for like 2 years. One of them picked up an evil artifact and became a demon lord. The druid and the rogue joined together to form an assassin's guild, and the fourth just became king. Hi, I'm James, and on this channel I talk about the things I think about, plan, and plot for my tabletop role-playing games. And today, that's my favorite type of campaign. The sandbox. I think what makes a sandbox difficult for dungeon masters to run is not that it's more prep, but it requires a different mindset. You're probably familiar with the term sandboxing from video games, so we should start there. It is often used in video games as a synonym for open world games, and while the two are complementary, they mean different things. An open world game is one where the freedom of the players to move and explore the terrain is not limited. Take Elden Ring, for example. You can walk basically anywhere I want. Sure, it's an island. I can't just set sail for the lands outside the in-between because From Software eventually ran out of swamp, but within the game space, I'm free. Compare that to something like God of War. Kratos, as a character, could just wander off into the woods, but the game says, no, the path continues this way. Which is fine. God of War is fantastic. Sometimes I want a carefully crafted narrative and big action movie fights instead of being subjected to a grueling final exam or getting distracted by sparkly things for 6 hours. The distinction matters because just having a big map isn't enough to say that you've created a sandbox. Barovia has a giant map that the players are free to explore at their leisure, but the campaign is always circling back to the final confrontation with Strahd. The sandbox, though, is about more than just the ability to explore the terrain. It allows the players the freedom to dictate what their goals are going to be and then decide how they're going to go accomplish those goals. In Minecraft, it is my choice to pursue the Wither. I can shoot it with a bow and then hack it to death. I can summon a bunch of golems to fight it for me. I can stick its head in bedrock and wait for it to die. The game doesn't tell me that I need to fight the Wither, nor does it dictate exactly how I solve the problem. The game presents systems, the player creates intent. And tabletop role-playing games are kind of the ultimate evolution of that idea. Even the best sandbox video games have a limit to what they can respond to. Minecraft has a defined ending. If the player decides that this time around the goal of the game is to collect one of every item, the game can't really acknowledge when they have succeeded at that task because the developers have to hard code in what qualifies as ending. But in TTRPGs, we have a designer at the table, the dungeon master. If the players decide that they're going to overthrow a kingdom, create a bardic college, found a paladin order, or spend 3 sessions adopting a local goblin tribe instead of hunting them, the world responds dynamically. That doesn't mean that the dungeon master has to say yes to every player idea. It means that the campaign evolves. It responds to player intent. Players create goals, and dungeon masters create consequences. That's the heart of the sandbox. It's not unlimited freedom, but responsive freedom, which is easy enough to say until you're sitting across from a table with 4 players and you say,
Have agreed to meet up in a tavern. They're here to discuss how they're going to make a name for themselves in this kingdom. Each of them is seeking something different: fame, glory, riches, revenge. What would you like to do?
and then wait while the players blink at you like they're waiting for a quest marker to appear above your head. Because players have been trained for decades to wait for the game to tell them what is important. That's why I don't start a sandbox with freedom. I start it with buy-in or momentum. Ideally both. I know of 2 classic ways to start a sandbox, the menu and the cold open. Both of these are trying to solve the same basic problem, giving the players enough direction that they can start making meaningful choices and not get locked down in choice paralysis. Dragon of Icespire Peak starts with the first, the menu. There's a quest board in town with a few different adventures. The players pick one and go.
I'm going on an adventure!
And this works really well because making a choice creates a sense of ownership. They want to see it through, but we're not asking them to pick all the things under the sun. Instead of saying, what do you want to do? We're saying, which of these activities do you want to do? It's the difference between saying, do you want to go out to eat? And do you want to go out for Thai or Italian? We have presupposed agreement to go out and eat at all. Half the group might be concerned with the dwarven prospectors, while the other half is concerned about the gnomes and their crazy kings. But these are two choices. They only have to negotiate that, not everything under the sun. Personally, I think the quests in Dragon of Icespire Peak are weak, but structurally it works pretty well. My bigger criticism is that all roads eventually lead to the dragon, which is easily fixed if you make the dragon a symptom of larger problems that emerge during gameplay. In a sandbox, you don't often want all the threads leading back to the same answer. Sometimes the necromancer has nothing to do with the Thieves Guild, sometimes political corruption has nothing to do with the Haunted Forest. These aren't tightly orchestrated symphonies, they're messy. They're the unique jam session of everyone at the table. The other option is the cold open. This is basically the opening of any James Bond film. Something has gone wrong and Bond must take action now. No setup, no planning, no sitting around a tavern discussing fantasy tax policy. Chases are popular, assassinations, monster attacks, undead outbreaks, all of the above.
You're escorting a caravan on the lonely road to the keep on the borderlands. For the last few days, there's been a heavy snowfall and it's getting near dark. As you start looking for a place that you can maybe stop and rest for the night, a cadre of undead burst out from the snowbanks, assaulting the guards and you.
Or
you and your party decide to spend the night in a tavern and you wait to find the entire structure is engulfed in flames.
The cold open might sound restrictive for a sandbox opening because you are dictating where the first adventure starts. But the important part is that no one knows where the story is going from there. If all you saw was the beginning of a James Bond movie, you'd have no idea where the adventure is going. But whatever you're doing, it should be something short, perhaps a 5-room dungeon. Something that you can do now that is a bunch of possible answers to why this is happening to connect its threads elsewhere. Why are the undead attacking? Could be demons, cultists, corrupt nobles, tomb robbers, a curse on the land. As a dungeon master, you don't have to have an explanation just yet. The opening should feel like it has the potential to be connected to something bigger, without describing that something bigger yet. Ambiguity creates flexibility, and it sidesteps one of the enduring questions of all new campaigns.
How do we all know each other? We survived that zombie attack together.
Shared danger creates connections better than 20 pages of backstory ever will. Generally speaking, a sandbox should start at low levels because they are about the full journey from nobody to legend, and because they're going to want safety on that journey, it should be about getting to or saving a town. The player characters could be from here, they could be from out of town, it doesn't really matter. They're here now, and there's a problem. Undead are rising from their graves. And once the players deal with that problem, there's an immediate follow-up question. The undead are rising because of someone or something, and the players are going to want to figure that out. So we sprinkle in some elements that might pay off now or later. There are some people in town that are of morally questionable character, like a person that is heavily implying that there are bandits out in the woods. There is a herbalist that might be a hag, might just be some loader dude that likes making strange potions out of mushrooms and has a predilection for chickens. There is a noble that may or may not have some dark nefarious purpose for the people in his town, and there was a demonologist who was caught looking through the town records for something. The important part is not to commit everything yet. We know that the undead are rising because a tomb was defiled. We don't know who told the thieves that the tomb was there. Does the demonologist have anything to do with the Thieves Guild? Does the noble know that his ancestor's tomb was being defiled? This is where a lot of dungeon masters accidentally kill their sandbox. Everything is tied to something before the game even begins. Most dungeon masters starting out with a sandbox think, I need to fully define this conspiracy. What they should be thinking is they need 3 factions that could all reasonably be the culprit. Maybe the players become obsessed with the herbalist, maybe they go and investigate the bandit camp, maybe they decide that this campaign is about raising a group of orphans to become a warlock. The goal here is to create pressure points. You don't need solutions yet, you need possibilities. Things that you can develop on the player's interest. Players are remarkably good about telling you what they care about, usually by adopting the most random NPC possible. This is where all those 5-room dungeons really become useful, because running a sandbox is less like writing a novel and more like assembling your toolkit. You don't need one big mega novel of a campaign, you need lots of little modular content that you can rewire for your own purposes. You need old keeps, sunken crypts, wizard towers, abandoned mines. When the players care, you attach content. If your demonologist needs a hidden lab, use one of the 5-room dungeons. Your bandits need a camp, use one of the 5-room dungeons. Your players have been ignoring that ruined abbey over there for the entire campaign, but suddenly they care. Cool, let's just move the undead out and let's move the cult in. And the players will feel like they're exploring a world that exists, while behind the scenes you're just repositioning all your blocks. Players only experience the world through their own perception. They don't see your notes. They don't know that the ruined abbey was originally haunted and not inhabited by cultists. And that's not railroading, because the players now want to explore a ruined abbey. We're just swapping out the undead for cultists. Matters is consistency after the interaction. Once players engage in the content, then it becomes canon. Before that, potential is more valuable than certainty. A sandbox feels alive when it continues to evolve based on the player's actions or inactions. So you don't want to overcommit your world before the players have a chance to even know these things exist. There's a tendency when you start world building to start tying all these things and lock them in place, and then it becomes harder for you to change that once the players want to go over in the left field. And the players can definitely tell if all roads secretly lead to Rome. And trying to fully set up your sandbox before even the first game session is how you end up at 2 a.m. with a world building document open trying to establish medieval cabbage pricing. And nobody needs that, not even the cabbage adventure. But what if the whole thing stalls and I start looking for that quest marker on top of my head again? Go back to some of the threads that your players kind of left behind and stop investigating and bring one of those forward, providing a new cold open to kickstart your adventures. The player's ally was just killed by an assassin from the Thieves Guild that the players stopped investigating. But hired by who? A good sandbox gives the players the meaningful freedom to chart their character's own destiny. A bad sandbox feels like you were dropped off in a parking lot and told to make your own movie. The players don't need a director, they need a collaborator. And the Dungeon Master doesn't need cargo, they need players that are willing to chart a direction. And then the world stops feeling like a pre-written story and the world starts being experienced, full of unintended consequences. The magic of a sandbox is that nobody really knows where the story is going. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember you're a player too. Try to have some fun.